want to ask you something before we get started. Have you ever walked away from a moment, a conversation, a meeting, an opportunity that mattered, and immediately started dissecting everything you said? Not because something went wrong, but because you showed up differently than you normally do. You showed up as yourself, the real you, not the version you engineered for rooms like that. And it felt so unfamiliar that your brain flagged it as a mistake. That's where I've been. And I'm not going to pretend I wasn't, because that's not what this show is. I did something recently that I have never done in a professional space in my entire adult life. I walked into a high stakes situation and I showed up as me. Authentically 100% me. And not the version of me that I built for rooms like that. Not the version that I knew exactly what to say and how to say it and how to make the room comfortable with my presence. Just me. And let me tell you, I have been a mess ever since. Not because anything went wrong, but because my nervous system has never seen that before. And it didn't know what to do with it. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when the version of you that you performed for so long starts to feel more real than the one you actually are. And what it cost you. And what it means when she finally steps aside. Now let's get into this week's episode. Hello everyone, and many blessings to you. I'm Shae, capacity strategist, human development researcher, and founder of Flow. And you are listening to Too Much for the Room, the podcast where we go underneath the performance, the exhaustion, and the shrinking. And we name what's actually happening. If you're new here, welcome. You found this space for a reason. Take a look around, explore some of the earlier episodes, and know that there is no wrong place to start. And if you've been here, then you already know we don't do surface level at all. We go all the way in every single time. But before I get into today's topic, I want to say this. If you listen to episode 9, The War Within, then you already have some context for where today's episode is coming from. We talked about the internal battle between your native, authentic self and your installed, performed version of yourself. Now, the two versions of you that are fighting for the wheel, if you haven't heard that one yet, I really encourage you to go back and listen. It's going to make today hit even harder and give you better understanding. Because today is what happens after the war, when the native self starts winning and the installed self loses her mind about it. Now let's get started. Now I want to start with a question that my research keeps coming back to. At what point does a performance stop being a performance? Think about the last time you walked into a meeting. Not just any meeting, but a meeting that mattered. A presentation, performance review, a conversation with leadership. What did you do before you walked in that door? If you're honest, you probably adjusted something. Your tone, your vocabulary, how much of your real opinion you were going to share. How much energy you were going to bring versus how much you were going to contain. Maybe you rehearsed how to frame something so it didn't come across as too aggressive, too direct, too much. That's code switching. And we've been talking about it for years as something we do consciously. A tool we pick up and put down depending on the room. But here's what I need you to sit with. What happens when you stop being able to put it down? What happens when you've been adjusting and calibrating and performing the palatable version of yourself for so long? In the meeting, at the family dinner, on the phone with your mother, in the church pews, at the school pickup line, that you genuinely cannot locate the version of you that exists without the adjustment. I'm not talking about situational awareness. I'm talking about the woman who sits in a meeting and delivers a brilliant idea in the most careful, digestible, non-threatening package possible and gets praised for it and feels absolutely nothing on the inside because she knows that wasn't her idea they received. That was the performed version of her idea. Sanded down, made safe, made digestible. And she smiled and said, "Thank you anyway." We talk a lot about masking, code switching, performing palatability, and we frame it as something we do consciously. Like we put on a costume and we know we're wearing it. But what my research documents and what the broader literature on identity substitution confirms is that for high capacity Black women, the performance doesn't stay a performance. It becomes a person. See, Dr. Cheryl Woods-Giscombé's foundational work on the superwoman schema describes this with precision. The roles assigned to Black women, the strong one, the capable one, the one who holds everything together without complaint, these aren't just external expectations. They become identity. They get installed before you have the language to question them. Before you even know there's another version of you underneath. And Patricia Hill Collins' work on the politics of respectability shows us how this installation gets reinforced over time. How Black women learn that safety, access, and acceptance are contingent on performing a version of themselves that the room can receive without discomfort. So you perform. You perform well. You get rewarded for it. The job, the promotion, I don't know what we do without you. And then over time, the performance becomes the blueprint for survival. Until something in you starts to stir and you realize you don't actually know who you are when the performance stops. Here's the distinction I need you to hear, because it changes everything about how we understand this experience. Most of the conversation around identity in Black women assumes suppression. The idea that you know who you are, you're just hiding it. There's a former self somewhere underneath that is waiting to be recovered. That healing means going back to find her. But my research documents something different. Something the existing literature hasn't fully named yet. See, what happened to you wasn't suppression. It was substitution. The installed identity, the performed version of you, didn't just cover your native self. She replaced her. Before you were conscious enough to choose. Before your identity was fully formed. Before you had the language or the power or the permission to say, "Now, wait a minute. This isn't me." And what that means is that there is no former self to return to. You are not recovering something you lost. You are arriving at something you were never fully allowed to become for the first time. Now, here's where I want to get personal with you, because This is my autoethnographic research, and I am the researcher in the subject. And I want to show you what this distinction actually looks like in real life, in real time, not in a textbook, not in a framework, but in an actual moment. So I recently went into a high-stakes situation, a professional one, and for the first time in my entire adult life, I did not perform. I did not pull out the version of me that I built for rooms like that. I didn't calibrate my vocabulary or engineer my energy or rehearse my palatability. I just showed up as Shae. And I want to tell you what that felt like in my body so you know I'm not just talking about theory. It felt wrong, unsafe. It felt like I had forgotten something important. Like I had walked out of the house without my keys. That low-grade panic of, wait, did I just leave something behind? Because here's what substitution does. It doesn't just change how you show up. It rewires what safety feels like. For years, safety was the performance. Safety was Shae, the installed version of me, walking in the room with my armor on. She knew what to say. She knew how to land it. She had a track record. She had receipts. And Shae, my true self, she was new. She didn't have a proven outcome in a space like that. She had never been allowed to try. So when I showed up as her, my nervous system immediately started running its threat assessment. And it came back with danger, unknown outcome, no track record, no control. And that assessment had nothing to do with how the situation actually went. It was purely a response to the absence of the performance. If you haven't listened to episode 9, The War Within, I really need you to go back because what I'm describing right now is the aftermath of that war. When the native self wins the moment, when she actually shows up, the installed self doesn't just concede. She launches a full-blown campaign to convince you that you just made the biggest mistake of your life. That's not discernment. That's survival mode. And we're going to talk about that right now. Now, I want to name something that happens in this transition that nobody talks about. When your native self starts to outperform your installed self, when she starts showing up more consistently, more fully, more honestly, the installed self does not go quietly. She panics and she comes back swinging, okay? And I need you to know what that sounds like from the inside. Because if you've been here, you know this voice, you know these thoughts, and you've probably been mistaking them for truth. The voice that says, you said the wrong thing. You were too casual, too informal, too much of yourself. You should have been more polished, more measured, more controlled. You probably came across as unqualified. They're not going to pick you. You should have performed. You should have been her. That's the wrecking ball. And she is precise. She knows exactly where to hit you because she built the armor. She knows every crack. Zora Neale Hurston wrote about the rich interior life that Black women carry. The thoughts, the knowing, the fullness that rarely gets to surface in public. What I'm documenting in my own research is what happens when that interior life insists on being seen in spaces that were designed for the performance. The disorientation is real. The second guessing is relentless. The reaching for a distraction, the turning the brain off, staying busy, refusing to think about it, that's not peace. That's a woman trying not to crumble while she holds everything together on the outside. And here's what I want you to understand about what the installed self is actually fighting for. She is not fighting because she's bad or she's terrible. She's not fighting because she wants to hurt you. She is fighting because she genuinely believes she is keeping you safe. She has years of evidence that the performance worked. She got you the jobs. She got you through the rooms. She knows how to be received. And she has never, not once, seen the native self in a high stakes space. So she has no evidence that Shae can do what Shae has always done. She's not trying to destroy you. She's trying to survive. Because if the native self doesn't need her anymore, who is she? That's the real war. Not good versus bad, not authentic versus fake. It's two survival systems competing for the same body. And the one that has been running the show for decades is not going to hand over the keys without a fight. All right, now. So this is where we do the work together. So when the installed self is in wrecking ball mode, when you're in the disorientation of having shown up as yourself and not knowing what comes next, here is how you move through it using what I call the sort method. Now, this method is not linear, it's recursive, and you may need to cycle back through it more than once. However, that is exactly how it is supposed to work. Step 1, see. This is the first step into seeing what is actually happening. Not the story that the panic is telling you, but what is actually and factually true. You showed up as yourself in a space that previously only got the performance. And your nervous system, the one that spent years keeping you safe through control and precision and palatability, has no reference point for this outcome. And that's it. That's what's happening. Not you failed, not you said the wrong thing, not you should have been someone else. You just did something new. And something new feels like danger in your body before it feels like freedom. Every single time. I want you to see it clearly and name it out loud if you have to. My installed self is panicking because she lost control of the outcome. That's it. That is C. Step 2, observe. Now, here is how we observe what that panic actually looks like in your body and your behavior. So, are you replaying the moment on a loop looking for evidence that you failed? Are you reaching for a distraction, your phone, your to-do list, anything that keeps you from sitting in the discomfort? Are you dismissing your own thoughts, trying to turn your brain off, holding it together on the outside while something feels like you're crumbling on the inside? I want you to observe it without judgment. You're not trying to fix it right now. You're just witnessing it. This is what it looks like when a high-capacity Black woman steps out of a performance she has been living for years. The disorientation is so real. The nervous system response is so real. And none of it, not one piece of it, means you did something wrong. Observe her with compassion. She's doing something she has never done before. That is observe. Step 3, reclaim. Now here is the truth you reclaim in this step. Unfamiliarity is not failure. I'm going to say it again. Unfamiliarity is not failure. The discomfort you feel right now is not evidence that you did something wrong. It is evidence that you did something different for the first time and in a space that used to require a costume or a mask. The installed self wants you to read the discomfort as a warning. a signal to go back, to perform next time, to make the room comfortable, even if it costs you again. But the discomfort is not a warning. It is a transition. You are not broken. You are not behind. You did not sabotage yourself. You are a woman who took off the armor in a room that used to require it. And you are now standing in the unfamiliar feeling of being seen without it. Reclaim that truth. Hold it and don't let the wrecking ball take it from you. That is reclaim. And step 4, trust. Here's the truth you trust. You cannot engineer what God is already ordering. The installed self's entire operating system is built on control, on engineering outcomes, on making sure the room receives the right version of you, on palatability and performance and precision. But your native self operates from something different. She operates from alignment, from truth, from the deep knowing that the right rooms will receive the real you. You cannot control this outcome. You were never supposed to. What you were supposed to do was show up as yourself, and you did. Now trust that the God who built your native self, who put the calling in you, the capacity in you, the depth in you before the world started editing it, is not surprised by what happened and is not finished working. Surrender the outcome. Trust the direction. That is the T for trust. Here is what I want to leave with you before you go. The version of you that you performed for so long, she wasn't terrible. She wasn't wrong. She was survival. She protected you in rooms that weren't safe for the real you. She got you through it. She got you here. But you are in a different season now. And this season requires the real you, the native one, the one who is still learning what it feels like to exist without the armor on. She's going to feel unfamiliar for a while. She's going to make you uncomfortable. She's going to show up in spaces and you are going to wonder if you did it right. Just know that you did. Keep showing up as her. Keep trusting what you can't control. Keep letting the real you take up space in rooms that weren't expecting her. Because here's what I know from 17 years of living this research. She was not broken. She was replaced. And she is finding her way back, one unperformed moment at a time. That is not too much. That is exactly enough. And that is too much for the room. Many blessings to you. And I'll see you in the next episode.